England, 1800. The world moved the speed of a horse. 4 miles an hour on a good road, 3 in the mud, less in winter. A man could walk from London to Birmingham in 4 days if the weather held. If it didn't, he might not arrive at all. Everything waited. Grain rotted in warehouses. Coal sat useless in distant mines. Letters took weeks. News arrived like rumours from another age. The world was vast because it was slow. But in workshops across Britain, men were dreaming of something impossible, a machine that could move itself, not pulled, not pushed, a thing of iron and fire that carried its own heart. They called it madness. Steam, they said, was for pumping water from mines, for turning mills, not for movement, not for speed. But the dreamers didn't listen. They heard something else in the hiss of boiling water. They saw something in the way pressure built behind iron walls. They felt it in their bones, this trembling at the edge of a new world. A world that would never be slow again. Richard Trevithick was the first to believe it could be done. Cornish, broad-shouldered, a blacksmith's son who became an engineer by force of will. He built steam engines that lifted more coal, pumped deeper water, breathed harder than anything before them. In 1804, he did what others called impossible. He built a locomotive. It ran on rails at a Welsh ironworks, 10 tons of iron and fire, pulling 5 wagons and 70 men. 4 miles. It moved. It worked. For one brief, shuddering journey, the future arrived. Then the rails broke beneath it. The weight was too much. The iron too brittle. The dream too early. Trevithick tried again, and again. In London he built Catch Me Who Can and ran it on a circular track for crowds who paid a shilling to ride. They laughed, they gasped, they called it a curiosity. Then they forgot about it. Trevithick died poor, in obscurity, his name barely remembered. But the seed was planted. George Stephenson wasn't the first. He wasn't the most educated. He couldn't read until he was 18. But he was relentless. Born in a mining village in Northumberland, he grew up in the dark. Coal dust in his lungs, the sound of pumps echoing through tunnels. He knew engines because he lived inside their world, the hiss of steam, the grinding of pistons, the thin line between power and explosion. He saw what Trevithick saw, but he saw further. It wasn't enough to make a locomotive work once. It had to work every day. It had to be practical, reliable, cheap. In 1814, he built Blucher for the Killingworth colliery, 8 miles an hour hauling coal. Then locomotion number 1 for the Stockton and Darlington Railway in 1825, the world's first public railway to use steam power. But Stephenson wasn't alone. There were others. Timothy Hackworth building engines in the same northern coalfields. John Ericsson and his partner John Braithwaite, Swedish and English, designing lighter, faster machines in London. Timothy Burstall, whose experiments failed but whose ambition never did. They all wanted the same thing, to prove that steam could replace horses forever. And in 1829, they got their chance. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway needed an answer. 40 miles of track between 2 of England's greatest cities. A fortune invested. Everything riding on one question: what would pull the trains? Some said horses, proven, reliable, safe. Others said stationary engines with ropes, machines anchored to the ground, pulling carriages along like puppet strings. But a few said locomotives, moving engines, iron beasts carrying their own fire. The railway's directors didn't know, so they decided to hold a competition. The Rainhill Trials, October 1829. The rules were simple. Run your locomotive back and forth along 1.5 miles of track. Do it 10 times. Carry 3 times its own weight. Average at least 10 miles an hour. Don't break down. The winner would get £500 and a contract to supply engines for the entire line. The future of railways would be decided in a field outside Liverpool. Crowds came, thousands. They lined the tracks, packed the hillsides, stood on wagons for a better view. Children sat on their fathers' shoulders. Women in bonnets shielded their eyes from the smoke. Gentlemen with pocket watches timed every run. They came to see a race, but it was more than that. It was a test of what the world could become. 5 locomotives entered. Cyclopt came first, a strange machine powered by a horse walking on a treadmill inside it. The crowd laughed. The judges disqualified it before it ran. This was supposed to be about the future, not cleverness with livestock. Timothy Burstall's Perseverance arrived late, damaged in transport. It limped onto the track, shuddering and slow, barely reaching 6 miles an hour. It withdrew on the second day. Then came Sans Peril, without equal, built by Timothy Hackworth. A heavy, powerful machine. It roared down the track, steam pouring from every joint, pistons hammering like cannon fire. Fast, strong. But halfway through its runs, a cylinder cracked. Water hissed onto hot iron. The engine gasped and died. The crowd groaned. Hackworth stood beside it, covered in soot, staring at the broken metal. 2 locomotives remained. Novelty, built by John Braithwaite and John Ericsson, was beautiful. Light, elegant, painted blue and copper, it looked like something from a dream, and it was fast. It flew down the track at 28 miles an hour, faster than anything the crowd had ever seen. They roared, women waved handkerchiefs, men threw their hats in the air. This was it. This was the future. Then, on its 9th run, a boiler pipe burst. Steam screamed into the sky. The engine rolled to a stop, hissing like a dying dragon. Braithwaite tried to repair it. He worked through the night by lamplight, fingers burnt, hands shaking. But the damage was too great. Novelty was finished. Only 1 locomotive remained. George Stephenson's Rocket. It wasn't the most beautiful engine. It wasn't the fastest on paper. But it worked. The Rocket was different. Stephenson and his son Robert had redesigned everything. They used a multi-tubular boiler, 25 copper tubes running through the water, heating it faster, hotter, more evenly. They angled the cylinders to drive the wheels directly, reducing weight and friction. They added a blast pipe that sent exhaust steam up the chimney, pulling air through the fire, making it burn hotter. Every part served a purpose. Nothing wasted, nothing weak. It looked like a machine built by someone who understood how things broke. Because George Stephenson did. On the morning of October 8th, the Rocket stood on the track. Yellow and black paint, iron wheels gleaming, a thin ribbon of smoke rising from its chimney. The crowd was smaller now. Some had left after the other engines failed. Others stayed out of curiosity or loyalty or because they'd traveled too far to turn back. Stephenson climbed onto the footplate. His son Robert stood beside him. They opened the valves. The Rocket moved. Not with thunder, not with drama, just steady, even power. The wheels turned. The pistons rose and fell. The fire crackled in the firebox. It pulled 13 tons of weight down the track at 12 miles an hour. Then back, then again. Hour after hour, run after run. No breakdowns, no cracks, no steam pipes bursting or wheels slipping or rails bending. Just iron doing what it was built to do. The crowd began to understand. Speed wasn't everything. Beauty wasn't everything. What mattered was this: it didn't stop. On one run, Stephenson opened the throttle wider. The Rocket accelerated, 15 miles an hour, 20, 24. Faster than any horse could gallop for more than a few minutes. Faster than a stagecoach on the best road in England. Faster than anything human beings had ever traveled on land without falling or crashing or dying. And the Rocket just kept going. A journalist from the Liverpool Mercury wrote, "The velocity was such that the eye could scarcely follow the motion. It seemed to fly." When the trials ended, the judges didn't need long to decide. The rocket had completed every run, averaged nearly 14 miles an hour, pulled its load without complaint, proven that a locomotive could be practical, reliable, and fast. George Stephenson won. But it was more than a personal victory. The question was answered, not with theories, not with promises, with iron and fire and miles travelled. Steam could move the world. The Liverpool and Manchester Railway opened in September 1830. Stephenson's locomotives pulled the trains, 8 of them built to the same design as the rocket. On opening day, the Duke of Wellington himself rode in the first carriage. Thousands lined the route. Bands played. Flags waved. It should have been perfect. But at a stop in Parkside, a member of Parliament named William Huskisson stepped onto the track to greet the Duke. He didn't hear the rocket approaching on the parallel line. It struck him. He died that evening. The first passenger railway claimed its first victim on its first day. The world learned something then. This new speed came with new dangers, new rules, new responsibilities. But the world didn't stop. Within a decade, railways spread across Britain like veins. London to Bristol, Birmingham to Derby, Manchester to Leeds, every major city connected by iron rails and steam engines. The journey from London to Birmingham, once 4 days on foot, now took 4 hours. Factories could ship goods overnight. Fresh fish reached inland cities before it spoiled. Newspapers printed in London were read in Edinburgh the same day. People who had never left their villages could visit the sea for a shilling. The rhythm of life changed. Time itself changed. Before railways, every town set its own clocks by the sun. Noon in Bristol was 10 minutes different from noon in London. It didn't matter when nothing moved faster than a horse. But trains ran on schedules. They needed one time, standard time. So the railways gave Britain a single clock, and then the world followed. George Stephenson became famous, wealthy. He built more railways in Britain and abroad. They called him the father of railways. But he never forgot where he came from. In his later years, he bought a large estate. He filled it with gardens, exotic plants, and songbirds. He'd spent his childhood underground in darkness. He wanted to spend his final years surrounded by green things and sunlight. He died in 1848, at 67, in a house near the Chesterfield coalfields where he'd once worked. The rocket outlived him. It's in a museum now in London, silent, cold, but still somehow alive in the minds of everyone who sees it. Because it's not just a machine. It's the moment the world learned to move faster than muscle and wind. Stand on a platform today, in any city, in any country. Close your eyes and listen. The rumble of distant wheels, the electric hum, the rush of wind as a train passes. That sound began in a field near Liverpool in 1829. When the rocket roared across that track, it wasn't just iron that moved. It was time itself. The age of slow travel ended. The age of distance collapsed. People who lived their entire lives within 10 miles of their birthplace suddenly could see the ocean, the mountains, the capital city. The world became smaller and larger at once. Smaller because you could cross it. Larger because now you knew how much of it there was to cross. Every train that runs today carries the ghost of that first race. Every journey across continents, under oceans, through tunnels blasted from mountains, all of it traces back to a handful of men who believed steam could do more than pump water. They were right. But they couldn't have imagined how right. High-speed trains now travel at 200 miles an hour. Maglev trains float above their tracks, pulled by magnets, faster than early airplanes. Billions of people ride trains every day, barely thinking about the miracle of it. Because it's not a miracle anymore, it's just life. But once, it was impossible. Once, the idea that iron could move itself was madness. Once, men died poor and forgotten for believing in it. And then one day, in front of a crowd of skeptics and dreamers, a yellow and black engine named the rocket rolled down a track and didn't stop. The sound it made, the hiss of steam, the clank of iron, the rhythm of wheels on rails, that sound never stopped. It just got faster. And the world followed.